on this screen, see, oh, the recording is in progress, good. On this screen, you see the contact information for the NAF, the Netherlands America Foundation. And there will be a slide all the way at the end of the presentation that lists all the names and email addresses for the various participants from the Consulate General and the Netherlands Innovation Network office in Boston. So no need to scribble names down or something like that. You know, it will be fine. You'll get the information in the last slide. And then once the presentations are wrapped up in the next day or so, we'll be sending around a copy of this PowerPoint so that you have everything in writing as well. One more note, the presentations and the discussion today will focus on economic aspects. So this is not the time to ask questions about dual citizenship and other matters that may be very urgent for you personally. And as many people know, I'm a big fan of always bringing up the dual citizenship issue. But this is not the time to do it. We're focusing on economic aspects today. So with that, let's turn to our program. And maybe if you could go back to the last slide. Yeah, thank you. So the NABC, the Netherlands America Business Council, as Jacob mentioned, is kind of a joint venture of various organizations around the country, various NAF chapters and various independent chambers of commerce. So in New York, the NAF has a chapter that's called the NAF Biz. It focuses solely on business aspect. And in Boston, we have a chapter that does both social aspects and business aspects. Where all of these NAF chapters are part of the Netherlands America Foundation. That's an organization that you may have heard of. We've been around for more than 100 years, focusing on improving ties between the Netherlands and the US in the fields of culture, education, but also business. And that is what we do at the NAF Biz, and that's what we're doing today. So, and speaking for the NAF Biz in New York, what we try to do is we try to organize events throughout the year. Normally they are in person, but of course with COVID, a lot of these events have been through webinars. We try to bring together the Dutch and the US business communities in the greater New York area. And of course, with the webinars that we're doing with COVID, actually our reach is much further beyond the greater New York area. So that has been great. And just to give you a flavor of what we've done over the past year, we've organized webinars on lifting the travel ban, a webinar earlier in the year on immigration in times of Corona. And we had a very interesting webinar on differences in diversity, different approaches in the Netherlands and in the US. We actually had an in-person event in November on the eve of the NAF Ball, what used to be called the Peter Stuyvesant Ball. We had a very interesting in-person seminar at the Harvard Club on viruses and vaccines with speakers Ab Oosterhuis, probably well known among many of you, of the University of Hanover, Manon Cox of Next Wave Bio, which was moderated by Margje Haverkamp of Avaris and Marshall, who is actually participating in today's discussion. So that's what we're doing at the NAF Biz in New York. And now I'd like to give the floor to Roel Dekkers, and then afterwards we will have our main speakers, Barry Nieuwenhuis, the Deputy General, the Deputy Consul General here at the Consulate General here in New York. And she is the head of the Economic Affairs Department, so exactly the right person for this webinar. And then afterwards we'll give the floor to Molly Douglas, the Senior Advisor for Innovation, Technology and Science at the Netherlands Innovation Network in Boston. So Roel will speak very briefly to describe what the Boston chapter does, and then we'll have somewhat longer presentations given by Barry Nieuwenhuis and Molly Douglas. And then afterwards, there will be a Q&A session, which we'll try to do using the chat function. So with that, I'd like to give the floor to Roel. Roel, are you here?
I sure am. Thank you. Thank you, Jan. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. Good afternoon to everybody following us here from US side, and good evening to everybody following us from home, right? The Netherlands. Thank you for being here today. Wonderful speeches earlier. So I'm Roel Dekkers. Since August, I'm chairing the NAF Boston chapter. We've really in the latter part of 21, we've been sort of internally focused, and we have a new board in place, which I'm very excited about. And we're lining up, a number of events for 2022 in the areas of the arts, sciences, cultural, social, and business. So we're very excited about that. We will be reaching out to you very soon on those events. It's really a very exciting time to become involved in the NAF. Like Jan just said, it's a 100-year anniversary we just had. And not only that, there are, despite all the limitations of the pandemic, there's also a lot of opportunities to broaden our reach, etc. So I really strongly encourage you to follow us on LinkedIn or Facebook, or reach out to me if you would like to get involved, or if you'd like information. So other than organizing these events, we also work closely with the Innovation Office that Molly is representing today, as well as the consulates and the other chapters around the country. So.
Great, thank you, Roel. And I would be remiss if I wouldn't encourage everybody to either go to the NAF website and sign up for our newsletters, or you can just send an email to info@thenaf.org. Just mention that you want to be put on the list for New York or Boston, or or maybe both. And of course, we would really encourage you to become a member. The NAF is a charity, so we are not subsidized by the government. We do all our good deeds with money that people give to us. So we need all the support we can get. So with that, I'd like to give the floor to Barry. Barry, are you here? It looks like you're muted, so either you need to unmute yourself. Yes. Yeah, there you go. So the floor is yours, Barry.
Thank you, Jan. And I have to say, I'm so relieved that you're not going to bring up dual citizenship. I know it's your favorite topic. No, sorry, I'm just joking. Thank you so much, and thank you, Roel. Big thanks to the NABC and to NAF BIST for hosting this New Year's reception, and for inviting the Netherlands Diplomatic Network. Very happy to be here, and very happy to meet you all. Although it's online, it's still good. I was scrolling through all the photos. My name is Barry Nieuwenhuis. I'm still pretty new in New York since last summer, and Deputy Consul General and head of the economic department. Well, we've made a small presentation for you. I'm struggling with my computer. I hope you can see the slides.
Yes, the first slide is up, the slide that shows the diplomatic network in the US.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, my computer just went down, but no worries, we'll figure this out. As you can see, well, of course, this is not new for you. We're based in New York, and we're covering the Northeast. In the region, we're lucky to have our innovation office in Boston, and also to have 3 honorary consuls. And then, of course, we work closely together with our embassy in DC, and also with the other consulates in the country, in Atlanta specifically, and in Miami on the East Coast. Next slide, please. I can't. Yeah. Okay, perfect. Well, this is our consulates, the different departments. I'm head of the economic department. It's our main job to support Dutch businesses that have an interest in trade or investing in the US Northeast. And I think it's important for you to know that we also have the Netherlands Foreign Investment Agency under our roof. And it's their main task to attract American businesses to support or to invest in the Netherlands. So basically the other way around. I saw some of my NFIA colleagues also in this breakout session, so that's great. Of course, we also have our consular department, very important for Dutch citizens. You can apply for passports or visa. And then we also have a cultural department. They work nationwide and are supporting Dutch cultural talents and icons. Here we go to the next slide. Yeah, this is our economic team with my wonderful colleagues, Carter, Jorn, and Swanette, all of whom are in this session as well. And then maybe the next one, our honorary consuls, who are also in this session, which is wonderful. We have Tom Johnson in Pittsburgh, Wilfred Muskens in Philadelphia, and Willem Schele in Boston. Yeah, and these are our focus areas. So maybe, yeah, you probably know, but part of our work is demand driven. So all Dutch companies who are interested in doing business in this region and need basic support, information, contacts, network, we're all helping these companies. And as you imagine, New York is definitely a very popular landing spot for Dutch companies. So our work is never boring. And apart from this sort of more demand-driven work, we have chosen our economic focus areas. And doing that, we look at American demands, and then we look, we want to match that with Dutch expertise. And the third sort of pillar in that is our added value as a government. So where does it make sense for us to be present? For New York, we have come to these four, or I would actually say five. It's climate and water. There we have quite a solid position, both in water quality and also in water infrastructure, so climate change adaptation. In New York, the new administration, the Adams administration, but also the infrastructure bill offer opportunities there. The other one is energy, and within energy, we're specifically focusing on offshore wind. There is a group of Dutch companies active in the Northeast, and it's our role to support them and to connect them to the relevant American authorities and ecosystem. Our other priority is the startup and scale-up sector. Well, I don't have to tell you that New York is the second startup ecosystem in the world. And what we do is that we offer very specialized and also individual support to Dutch high potential startups that want to land in the New York ecosystem. The other priority, the fourth, is life sciences and health. And I would say that's basically across the board for both innovation, for startups, and also for the Netherlands Foreign Investment Agency. Actually, in this sector, the NFIA is actively scouting American companies to see whether we can entice them to invest in the Netherlands. And as a consulate there, our main task is to support this by maintaining and strengthening the network. And then the fifth one is creative industries. And this is a bit of a new one for us, and it's one that I'm personally picking up. We see ample opportunity in the US, more than we can handle, I would say. There is also ample Dutch talent and a very interesting sector. And there we're in the process of mapping opportunities and also reaching out to the Dutch side. Regarding these focus areas, I would like to say, if you're connected to one of them and not yet in touch with us, and if you would like to, please reach out to myself or to one of my colleagues. And maybe I think we have an overview of the activities. As you can see, they basically all relate to our priorities. Maybe highlight here that we are planning to organize a pop-up consulate in Boston in April. We still have to find the dates. It means that we will have our consular desk open for 1 or 2 days in Boston. So Dutch community there who wants to apply for passports don't have to travel to New York, but can do so in Boston. And we want to combine that with some business meetings and possibly also a networking reception for the Dutch business community there. And we're planning actually the same for Pittsburgh, possibly also Rhode Island and Pennsylvania for this year. I guess I should leave it at that and hand over to my colleague in Boston, Molly.
Hello, I'm Molly Douglas. Thanks for the handover. And actually the last thing that you highlighted, Badi, makes for a really great transition because while we do work a lot together, the Boston and the New York teams were actually distinct from one another in certain key ways. So my name is Molly Douglas again. I'm Senior Advisor for Innovation, and I'm part of the Netherlands Innovation Network team. If you're not familiar with it, we are basically the science, technology, and innovation arm of the Dutch Diplomatic Network internationally, and we are also under the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Climate Policy. In the US, we have 3 distinct teams. One is in Boston, one is in San Francisco, and one is in DC. The team in San Francisco is housed within our San Francisco consulate, and the team in DC is housed within our embassy. In Boston, we're just hanging out by ourselves, which can be a lot of fun sometimes, but we love when we get to work with our colleagues in the broader network. So if you're in the Boston area, you can find us in downtown Boston in the Cambridge Innovation Center in the Financial District. And mostly we work across the New England region, focusing predominantly on Massachusetts, but also increasingly on states like Maine, for example, and others as well. And our overarching mission is to connect the innovation economies of the Netherlands with that of other leading innovation economies around the world. So if you're in the Boston, New York area, I'm sure you know that Boston has a really great innovation economy, and that's why we're here. Svana, if you wouldn't mind going back to the previous slide, please. Thank you. So this is an overview of our team. So our attaché for innovation, tech, and science is Mart Doutmeijer. Martijn Lammers is our area director for strategic acquisition with both the Netherlands Innovation Network and the NFIA, which Badi talked about earlier. This is an interesting one. Martijn joined our team just over a year ago now. I think this might be his anniversary, and he is in the room if you can say hello to him in the chat. And he is working with his colleague Tom Vos, who is at the New York consulate, and they're looking to actually bridge the work of the innovation team with that of the NFIA to see what they can do to further support moving interesting American entities over to the Netherlands. So, hey, Martijn, he said hello in the chat. And then also we have in our team Monique Benema, who's events coordinator, who's just joined us to help out with a lot of large projects that we have this year. So we're very grateful for her on our team. And if you can move to the next slide, please, Vanette. Okay, so what do we focus on in Boston? I mentioned that we're very innovation, tech, science driven. We don't do consular affairs. We don't get to work on some other things as well. So we really spend most of our time looking at things like clean tech and the energy transition. So that's renewables, meaning things everywhere from offshore wind, which we work on with New York, to say deep energy retrofits to buildings, batteries and storage, solar, etc. We spend a lot of time on this. And then the biggest part of our portfolio next to that is life sciences and health, which Martijn works on quite a bit, and also Mart, who heads our team. In addition to that, we also work on artificial intelligence, and then other key enabling technologies like quantum, nano, photonics, and through different applications like advanced manufacturing. Okay, Svanette, if you can move forward again, thanks. So we work with a variety of stakeholders in this. We're not, a trade body. We're not a business development group. We're really looking to make connections and stay ahead of emerging tech trends so that we can dispense advice. And in doing so, we're working with startups and scale-ups. We're also working with government agencies and then also with research institutions. So think of everything from a university to something like a standalone knowledge institution in the Netherlands. And we're trying to see where we can spark connections to help advance the latest and innovative technologies and also approaches that we would call innovative. And I think a good way to sort of illustrate that, because I'm sure it sounds abstract, is to talk a little bit about some of the events that we have planned for 2022. So for example, between Massachusetts and the Netherlands, we actually have an MOU on life sciences and health. It goes without saying that Boston is one of the top life sciences hubs in the world, and we're working together on biotech, medtech, and other areas of focus. And this year, we're launching a program of cooperation between the two entities, which lines out a very concrete agenda of programs and activities that we'll be collaborating on. Everything from fellowships to move talent back and forth, to bringing entrepreneurs from one country to the other, and so on and so forth. In February, you probably have heard of the MIT European Career Fair, which is really Europe's opportunity to come to MIT and see what they can do to lure recent graduates back over to the Netherlands. It's a big event. It's a lot of fun. And the Netherlands has always made a really great showing at this particular event. So we're still anticipating that for February. We'll see what happens with Omicron, the format that it will take. And that is upcoming soon. In May, another great example of collaboration with New York, we're going to be extending a mission that we've been working on for honestly about a year now on energy retrofits to not just Boston, but also to New York. We did this all digitally this past spring, introducing Dutch entrepreneurs who are looking to expand to this market in clean technologies to the Boston area. Now we'll be working with colleagues in New York, including Carter Craft and Jorn Poldermans, both who are in this call, on introducing those companies, hopefully in person, to both regions. And then there is also planned an innovation mission on emerging tech and health, an innovation mission on photonics, and we have some more things cooking for the fall that we can't quite yet announce. Finally, ongoing, we would love for you all to be aware that MIT has a really great internship program called the MISTI program, which is designed to help MIT students look for internships in the EU, well, and other places internationally, but of course we focus EU. And we have a number of them that are very interested in interning with Dutch companies. So if you're aware of any Netherlands-based companies that are looking for interns coming out of MIT, this is a project, or rather a program, for you to be aware of. We are also working with other universities like Northeastern, for example, on similar such projects. Further, maybe some of you attended an event that we held last spring where we worked with the Museum of Fine Arts Boston and the new Center for Netherlandish Art on an art and climate change crossover event that Carter Craft in New York also worked on with us, which was a very fun sort of mashup of both climate imperatives with Dutch art and seeing what the two spheres could learn from one another and also produce together. This year, we'll also be aiming towards another such event, but focusing on the art and life sciences and health intersection. And then finally, and maybe we'll leave this a little bit more for questions, we have been working on building up a fun tool for keeping the Dutch diaspora in this region connected with us, and we'd love for you all to reach out and learn more. All right, that's it for me. Thank you. And maybe I can just go ahead and then cover this slide. How about for both New York and Boston? So finally, we're very happy to also share our contact information here so that you can stay in touch. So this is everybody that you need to know from the New York Economic Affairs team, from the Netherlands Innovation Network team, and our honorary consuls as well for the Northeast region. And particularly for the Boston team, if you're interested in that diaspora opportunity that I mentioned for staying in touch, please do reach out to Mart, who, yeah, you can see right there, Attaché for Innovation. All right, I will turn it back over to the moderators.
Thank you very much, Barry and Molly. I think there were a couple of more slides. Did you want to show the slide, Zwanette, on with the links here? Yeah, the social media sites, because I find that that's quite a useful way to stay posted on what the consulate is doing. So here you have those. No need to scribble them down. We'll send the PDFs to you after the session. So with that, I'd like to open the floor for questions. We have the chat function open. So if you have a question, we just tested it a little bit. The chat function is working. So please go ahead and ask your questions. And while people are typing away, Molly, maybe I can ask you to tell us a little bit more about this network that you're trying to set up with people in the Northeast that you want to stay in touch with, the Mentor Jam network.
Thank you. Yes, I definitely appreciate the opportunity to talk about it a bit more, because this is a great opportunity to hopefully also sell it to you all. But for mostly the New England area, we're using a tool called Mentor Jam, which actually belongs to a Dutch startup based in Amsterdam. It's basically kind of like a social networking site, and it was originally set up really to connect mentors with mentees, particularly entrepreneurs. We're using it as a very simple platform to start getting the Dutch diaspora in the New England area all connected to one another in a very professional sense. So if you're interested in joining, please send an email to Mart. And again, his contact information was in that slide, and I'll shoot it into the chat as well. And we're using the platform as a means to help you connect with one another. Say like you're looking for a different kind of business opportunity. You see someone on the platform who might have a profile that's of interest to you and you want to reach out and ask for advice. That's something that you can do. It can also sometimes be used for social purposes as well. We love to support the NAF, when we can, and to work together. And that's also a great tool for that. And also, we have been slowly organizing, as appropriate during the pandemic, in-person events to get together and for everyone to meet one another. And we're finding that some people who have been, say, in the Boston area for maybe like 20, 15 years, maybe Dutch and maybe have not met each other yet. And it's such a remarkably small city. So how is that possible? So we're trying to overcome these things. So we definitely encourage you to sign up for Mentor Jam. Yes, please.
That is great. And a plug, you were talking about internships earlier. So I want to do a quick plug for a program that the NAV has set up in the past several years, where we bring in interns from the Netherlands. And these are typically from disadvantaged backgrounds. And the NAV actually pays for their ticket, the NAV pays for their visa, and it gives them a stipend for rent and other living expenses. So this is basically, you can get an intern from the Netherlands from either an HBO or a university institution that is fully paid for. It's a great experience for those students. And the feedback that we have received from host companies has been very positive. So if you're interested in that, send an email to the NAV's email address, and we'd love to be in touch with you. So with that, I guess I don't see any questions in the chat function yet, but maybe I could ask Barry a question about how you deal, what kind of services you offer for startup and scale-up companies. Because I think there are a lot of those companies that come to the US with two goals often. One is to seek funding, at least from my perspective. So I'd be interested to hear Barry's perspective and Molly's perspective. They come here to seek funding, and they come here to seek customers. trying to set up business over here. So, so what has been your experience so far, and what kind of help can you offer to such companies?
Thanks, thanks, Jan. Thanks for the opportunity. Yeah, what we have done last year, which was actually quite successful, was we organized together with Belgium and Luxembourg an accelerator, which is basically a 2-week training program where we really take a couple of companies. So it's really a small group. They're vetted already in The Hague, so they're high potential. And well, and we talk about different topics. How do you do your pitch? We Dutch are not as good as in pitching as the average American is. So we do pitch training. We also talk about hiring people in New York. And of course, it's also introduction to venture capitalists. So it's very specialized, very intense training program. Yeah, so that's, and we have done that. We've started that last year. We've done 2 groups, 2 cohorts. There's a whole specific language to this startup world, as you probably know. And we're planning to do another 2 this year. So 1 before summer and 1 in the fall, and hopefully in person. So these are the cohorts, and then of course also for individual companies that reach out to us, we have an introduction meeting, and then when we feel it's good enough and serious enough, we introduce them to the network here. We also have a network of mentors. So these are Dutch startups that are already established in New York and maybe are not startups anymore, but have scaled up their companies and who take these new companies, so to say, under their wings. Yeah, that's how we try to do that. And it's actually quite, in a way, it's a new approach, because in the regular sort of economic diplomacy, it was more standardized. We help everybody, basic information, first context, and then companies find their own ways. And I think for these high potential startups, we really, it's really individualized and quite intense in a way.
Yeah, and I think it's very smart because it's very focused, and in a sense it's individualized, but also you take a cohort at the same time, right? So
yeah.
So from that perspective, it's it's a selected group of people, and you give them, you take them through a program so that you use the time of your mentors, as efficiently as possible.
Yeah, absolutely, and that also creates like a strong network of Dutch entrepreneurs in this region. Yeah, who can help each
Molly,
other.
how do you do this in? Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off, Barry. Molly, how do you do this in Boston? Is it similar? Do you also have an accelerator program?
We do similar work to support startups and scale-ups in Boston. We're a little bit different, perhaps, in the types of startups and scale-ups that we target or work with. So also like New York, we will happily field one-off requests from startups or scale-ups that are referred to us or find their way to us and that we see as particularly innovative. Again, that's really our emphasis. We're very science and technology forward. So we're looking to support those types of businesses, entrepreneurs coming from the Netherlands towards this ecosystem. And the type of advice that we dispense when we talk to them tends to be usually more along the lines of, okay, so you're looking for maybe an early partner to help you work on your prototype or to test out your product, and you're still looking for a partner who therefore might have the kinds of resources that you would think of going along with, like a lab or something like that. To kind of like, to give the example very plainly, if we can say. And so that's a kind of connection that we might make. Or oftentimes we'll have someone come to us who might say, for example, have a particularly innovative clean technology where they've already gotten past the prototype stage. Maybe they have a little bit of seed funding and they're looking for a way to successfully break into this new ecosystem and grow, but with a little bit of help and support, in which case we might introduce them to an incubator like Greentown Labs, for example, that can help them grow. We do aside from the one-offs, more traditional support like what Barry was describing, and our teams will work together sometimes on this type of support. So we'll do what we would call maybe more traditional missions, focusing on certain segments of the startup or scale-up ecosystem in the Netherlands, and only selecting or working with what we think are the most innovative. So for example, this past summer, we did 2 such missions, one that was really focusing on energy technologies and one that was really focusing on biotechnologies and focusing specifically on scale-ups. So we'll do that kind of targeted support where we put them in contact with investors that we think can help them grow. We put them in touch with research communities that we think can help them grow. We bring them in contact with accelerators and incubators. We organize pitch competitions and events. I like that Barry did note that it's really important to work on the pitch training. This is something that we harp on so much, but a lot of it really does go back to how do you be successful in this different work culture, in this climate, and this ecosystem.
Maybe Jan, to add, it's our colleague Jorn Poldermans. He's also in the meeting. I saw he's still there, who is our startup diplomat and our first point of entry for these companies.
Sure. Jorn, would you like to add something? Let's see, where is Jorn? Oh, yeah, there he is.
If I unmute it,
Oh, Jorn, you're having some technology problems, which is pretty bad in your line of work, I would think.
Yeah, no, I think both Molly and Barry, I know, it's my first time to work.
Oh, this is better. This is better without the video. Not that we don't like looking at you, but the sound quality is much better. But I got the message. You thought it was sufficiently covered by Barry and Molly. And here I see a question in the chat. The question is, do you do much work with Dutch B2B fintechs that want access to US or global banks?
Yes, we do. So any connections in that space would be much appreciated. We have a upcoming fintech and cyber roundtable next week, and there will be a larger East Coast fintech mission coming up with Holland fintech, probably in Q2. We really are planning to do this in person, so we're waiting for a good offer. Hope you can hear that.
Great. Yes. No, that is very very helpful. I see on my screen that we have Mesut on the phone. So Mesut, since you are an entrepreneur and very much involved in the startup community, maybe you wanna add something to what our speakers mentioned.
Well, I'm mainly listening, and it's a bit late because I just arrived at the Netherlands and heavily jet lagged, so I didn't sleep the entire night. I mean, it's a very interesting time, right? We're coming right out of the pandemic for the last, I don't know, 18 months or something. It was quite, to be very honest with you. A huge transition technologically. So whoever was preparing themselves pre-pandemic is doing really well, because they basically used the pandemic as an accelerator to push forward for what they already had decided strategically. But those that they have to catch up, struggled big time. So what we see in the startup world is a lot of companies that basically had to roll up unless you're in the technology space. And of course, I mean, we all saw this, right? For the last few months, like till I think it was November or something, wasn't even able to come into the United States unless you are a US resident or a Dutch resident. So all that being easing up is having people come up. We already see a lot of young entrepreneurs coming in and seeing and visiting and trying to catch up what they had left behind, I don't know, 18 months ago. But having said that, there's a lot of catching up to be made. The current restrictions around traveling with the Omicron doesn't help. But at the other side, I just arrived in the Netherlands, actually. It looks like, people are realizing Omicron isn't that bad. So it's really getting better. So that will hopefully have a positive effect, and we'll have, more people coming in New York and the rest of the States.
Thank you. Thank you. That is great. I was just thinking that Jacob, who of course kindly took the lead in organizing this event, but as many of you know, but maybe not everybody, in his day-to-day life, he is the CEO, I think, or the boss at POPS, Transatlantic Business Solutions. But I think of all of us here, Jacob probably has the most extensive experience in helping Dutch companies deal with the practical aspects of doing business in the US, because I think, Jacob, you represent, how many Dutch companies do you now represent?
A little over 300 with a team of 27.
So we don't have to do any surveys anymore of how Dutch companies are doing in the US. We can just ask Jacob. But Jacob, I was just wondering, having heard all this, do you have some observations that you want to share with the group?
Well, we actually, and I'm happy to share that with the group. We did a research not too long ago called Dutch Ventures in the US, and that was started pre-COVID, and we finished it basically in 2020 at the end, early 21. And it's very clear that most Dutch companies actually fared quite well during the COVID pandemic. Also because they were, number one, prepared for remote working, but number two, they're so that reflects also in our portfolio. We're so focused on tech, and now you see a little bit, of course, disruptions also in the supply chain. So those companies who were exporting product to the US, yes, they are definitely affected. But what we noticed was that most Dutch companies actually fared quite well, and also knew their way. They did find their way to the various programs from the US government, the PPP loans, the EIDL loans. So if they were impacted, they were able to get pretty generous support from the US government. I've got to say that if I compare that to the Dutch government, the US government was in some cases remarkably lenient with forgivable loans and things like that, as long as you were employing, of course.
Yeah, that's great input. So as some of you know, I represent a lot of Dutch companies that do business in the US, and it's actually, initially everybody thought the world was going to end, but I think a lot of companies have done extremely well throughout the COVID period. So it's not all doom and gloom, certainly, from what I've seen.
What I do see is that those who were in the startup stage, so they were about to start building a team, they really held off and tried to do it remotely, and did not send they could not send their first person to the US to start up the team over here. So you saw, and probably Steve Magic can also confirm that, you saw quite a bit of visa applications on hold, and therefore they could not really start building their team in the US. That was probably how most companies were negatively impacted, if they were negatively impacted.
Steve, Steve, many people know Steve, who has been a frequent speaker at NABC events.
Hi, everyone.
We are all-around go-to guy for immigration, US immigration law questions, and Steve has a lot of experience helping Dutch companies, so he is familiar with kind of the issues that come up, including cultural issues when Dutch companies try to get into the US. So Steve, may I hand the mic to you?
Sure, I wasn't prepared, but I think it's been a whirlwind. I think at the beginning of the presentation, it was mentioned that the travel ban was lifted finally in November, and that meant that people didn't need the national interest exception anymore to come in, which was a huge relief. And I've seen a huge wave of interest now. Because of that, at the same time, the US consulate in Amsterdam was inundated with E2 petitions that were just waiting in the wings to be submitted. And they put that on pause for almost 2 months. But as of December 21st, they are now accepting and processing E2 petitions, which is the principal visa used by a lot of these companies that we all work with in the US. So that's great news, because for about 6 weeks, there was a blackout where they weren't even responding or recognizing that petitions were being submitted. So it's all looking much more positive right now.
And Steve, I also heard the rumor that the US consulate in Amsterdam was going to waive interviews for certain categories of people.
They have, and that's actually Department of State wide. So all across the world now, H-1Bs, Ls, Ps, and Os, which are the principal visas used, you can now send your passport in and get your visa stamped, following the procedures that are online. And so far, we've had a few clients do that. Thank goodness, because otherwise we had clients that were 9 or 10 months backlogged on interviews and looking to go to Curacao or Aruba or other places to get their processing. Now you can do it virtually. So E2 is still part of the E2 visa unit, and they're taking care of those. But all the other visas where you're sponsoring people, including the J1s that the NAF obviously has experience with as well, are being processed now virtually. And the J1s have interviews, but they're expedited.
Great. Well, that is great to hear. There was a suggestion in the chat that unless there are any more questions for the group, that maybe we could do like a quick around the room, because normally we have these events in person, and part of it is that you have a drink afterwards and get to meet people. And I think I see a lot of interesting people. So if that is okay, maybe we can do a show of hands. So of course, if people need to leave, that is perfectly fine. But if people want to stay behind, who would be in favor of doing a quick around the room? I see a couple of people who would be interested. So why don't we do that? Why don't we go by my screen? So on my screen, Peter Rijken would be the first one, and then Dan Grassman afterwards. So Peter, go ahead.
My name's Peter Rijken. I've been here in the United States for 30 years, and I'm Senior Director with Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Excellent. Dan.
Yeah, Daniel Grassman. I wear a number of different hats. I've been here since late 80s or thereabouts, on and off, mostly here though. A couple of roles that I'm currently working on is work in strategy at a legal technology firm. I work at a boutique investment bank that works with quite a lot of startups, helping them raise capital. And then I'm also working with quite a few startups as a mentor, advisor, board member, you name it.
Great. On my screen, Willem Berger is next.
Okay, I'm Willem Berger. This is my 8th year in this particular stint in the United States, but I've lived here on and off sort of half the time since 71 as an academic, and most recently as chief economist of Citigroup. Now I'm adjunct at Columbia University, adjunct professor, and I'm trying to run my own advisory and consultancy business, which working for a living. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you for joining us today. Carter Kraft is up next.
Hey, good afternoon and happy New Year, everybody. My name is Carter Kraft. I work in the economic department at the consulate in New York City. Whereas Barry mentioned in the presentation, my portfolio includes water and renewable energy. Nice to meet you. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Saskia, you're next.
Thank you. Yes, my name is Saskia Houwing. I live in the US now for 7 years, together with my husband, Eric, who works for Philips. I work as a coach. I've been organizing TEDx Seattle and started up a TEDx Youth in Seattle. Since 1.5 years, we live in Lexington, Massachusetts. And from my home office, I coach individuals and teams, and I also connect companies from the Netherlands or organizations with some companies in the US.
Thank you. So from Fintechs.
I've been since 1994, business school, and stayed on ever since. I worked for Best Associates and stayed in the starting banking firm to throughout 30 years. I sold my firm in early 2020. Since then, I've been working on my own and working with Fintechs and providing advice to startups.
Excellent, thank you. Claudia aan het woord.
Yes, hi, happy new year to everyone. The new year started for me in a different position. I have joined FTX Commodities LLC as a legal counsel. They have a home office in Amsterdam and office in Singapore, and this year we are here in New York. So we're trading environmental commodities.
I have Erik Storteboom next on my screen. We can't hear you, Erik. It's weird because
How about this?
Yeah,
that was double muted. So Erik Storteboom has been here since 2006. I work for Bank of America, and I am a senior RM relationship manager for the corporate bank in Bank of America, and one of the founders of NABC with Jan and Jacob.
Sure, thank you. Sjoukje Elstra.
Hi, my name is Sjoukje. I'm a NAV Fulbright scholar at Harvard University in Cambridge, Massachusetts. I'm studying learning design, innovation, and technology. So I'm excited to be here with on behalf of the NAF as well.
Right. Excellent. Well, a special welcome to you, and it's almost like you are a plant in this in this session. So this is what the NAF does, guys. You know, we send super smart people from the Netherlands on Fulbright fellowships to study at Harvard. So this is what we do. So support our mission.
Thank you very much.
Roel, you already introduced yourself. So then we have Marijn Boender on the line from the Netherlands.
Hi, everybody. As we say here in the Netherlands, the beste wensen. My name is Marijn Boender. I'm chairing the Netherlands chapter of the NAF. Yeah, we have 8 or 9 chapters around the United States now, of which New York, Boston are obviously prominent ones, but we started one about 6 years ago in the Netherlands. So we try and kind of get people started from this end. As we're plugging things, we truly hope that we can do our big fundraiser in the Netherlands on the 11th of June. So if you happen to be around, of course, COVID permitting, but we're very excited that we have these connections and that we can actually partake from the Netherlands in these great events. So kudos to NAFBIZ for putting it up. Thanks.
Thank you, Marijn. Willem Berger is up next.
Yeah, hi, Joost. Willem Berger. I have been in the States since 1995. Been in clinical research during my career, most recently at Pfizer at the Rare Disease and Vaccines Group in an executive role. Since then, Chief Medical Officer at a small biotech company in Cambridge, and most recently retired for a year. And I'm the honorary consul for Boston.
Excellent. Okay, great. Let's see. Next up is Mesut. See if Mesut is able to.
I should be unmuted.
Yes, very good. Very good, Mesut.
Thanks, Jan. As you said, I'm Mesut Salabi. I've been in New York for 12 years. I'm the co-founder and CEO of the Innolease Group. I'm mainly known by the brand the Startup Bootcamp, one of the largest accelerators actually outside the United States, with more than 1,200 startups or across 20 different industries around the world. I am also happily contributing as a NAFBIZ New York board member for the last, I would say, 8 years or something. So most of you or some of you I already know, of course, as we see each other in the many in-person gatherings that we had pre-pandemic, and hopefully we'll get back to see each other soon, anytime when this whole thing is over.
Excellent, thank you, Mesut. Pieter van Gol. We can't hear you, Peter. Let's try it now.
Can you hear me now?
This is better. Yep.
Perfect. Thank you. I am Peter van Gol. I lived in the United States in Rhode Island from 2014 to 2018 with the intention to return to the United States until the competition stole me. So then I actually moved to Zurich, Switzerland, And with my company, Zupec Medica, where majority of business is still European, but we're seeking for United States business opportunity in the next 2-3 years. I'm the business development manager at Zupec Medica Group. Excited to be here. I just joined the session, and good seeing some of you familiar folks.
Excellent. Excellent. Jeroen.
Yeah, hi. My name is Jeroen de Vries. I'm owner and founder of the Nylander company. I'm in the United States, in and out since 1981. I just celebrated my 40th arrival, January 1st. And have been 25 years living in Houston, Texas in the meantime, back in the New York area since 2012. And we are financial engineers, and we can fund basically any company $100 million up that meets our financial modeling criteria and business proposal. Thanks.
Erik Vanderzonde.
Yes, hello everybody. My name is Erik Vanderzonde. I've been here for 3 whole months now, but I'm planning to stay. So I work for Stead & Chase. We do executive search and leadership consultancy. And when I just moved in, I immediately joined the NAF Gala. So that was a great entry, and hoping to join a lot more NAF events in the future.
Excellent. Well, welcome to New York.
Thank you.
Laura, you're up next.
Dankjewel, Jan. Happy New Year to everybody. Healthy New Year, hopefully. I am the director, and together with Vele, who dropped out, but we organize Dutch classes for about 400 students, mostly New York area, where we do it in person, but also Florida, Philadelphia. And we also have students abroad, since we try to also work with students outside of the US, in short. I've been here since 1995, so long time in the meantime.
Many kids who learn to speak Dutch thanks to you, Laura. So thank you for your hard work. And I can attest it works. You know, it works. So next is Robert Gallagher.
Hi, I'm a senior banking consultant, big banks like Royal Bank of Scotland, Mizuho, Scotiabank, and lifelong New Yorker. I'm very embarrassed that I don't speak a word of Dutch, and it's probably due to my Irish name. And I try to hook everybody now and then with some of my interest goes back to our family is from the early New Amsterdam and Staten Island days. So my interest is that I'm a direct descendant of the patroon who founded Staten Island, and that's always been a big deal in our family, Patroon Mellon. And I every now and then I try to hook you guys with that and try to do something fun with it. But that's where my interest comes from, and I'm very active in the history of Staten Island and New Amsterdam, and I'm an Upper East Sider and banker, private investor right now.
Excellent. Thank you for joining us today. Alexander Regno. Regno? I don't know.
Regno, yes.
Yes.
That's me. So good afternoon, everyone. Happy New Year. Yes, Alexander Regno. I'm a Dutch American by birth, actually. Born and raised in the Netherlands, but been here in the US now for 8 years. In those 8 years, different states that I have lived in already: New York, Maryland, Connecticut, and now here in Massachusetts. So I'm resident in the quaint town of Marblehead, just north of Boston. From a business point of view, I am the regional director for a Dutch-based software company where we specialize in commodity risk management software. So, and actually someone, I think it was Claudia of STX, we just did a proof of concept for her. So that's the type of companies that we try to connect with. And happy to have some more face-to-face events in Boston soon. If we can make that happen.
Sounds good. Well, Molly tells me that you live in a very pretty town. So there you go.
It definitely is a very, and we live in an old historic home from 1772, older than the US actually.
Okay,
So
that's nice.
Very interesting.
David de Boekhorst. See, maybe he's gone, but I know that last but not least, Zwanette is still here because otherwise this whole Zoom thing would fall apart. So Zwanette is the person behind the scenes today, but absolutely not behind the scenes normally at the consulate, a crucial person at the consulate. So Zwanette, go ahead. Oh, you're mute.
Hi, I'm Svanette Brugink. I work at the economic department and I'm a generalist in agriculture and food. And I am also a NAFBIS board member and I'm also committee member for the NAF Bowl. What I've been doing for the last 10 years with lots of fun and looking forward to the next one. So I'm always the one you can find and I can direct you to all my colleagues if they're not around at that moment, or I can find them and we make sure you get connected straight away.
Excellent. So I hope I gave everybody an opportunity to introduce themselves. So if so, thank you very much, everybody, for sticking around because we really went over time, but I thought it was like a super nice discussion and a very nice group and very great suggestion to kind of go around the horn and give everybody an opportunity to introduce themselves. Of course, many thanks to Zwanette and Jacob, who really did most of the legwork behind the scenes to make all of this happen. And thank you very much to our speakers, Barry and Molly. Thank you very much. This was a great event, and you will get the PowerPoint afterwards, links to the recordings, and please put yourself on the NAF mailing list so that we can all stay in touch and do become a NAF member. Because you saw Sjoukje, this is the good work that we do. So please help us continue doing our good work. Very good. Thank you. This is the end of our session, and have a great night, everybody, and a great new year. Thank you.
Thank you.